welcome
Hey, everybody.
to Breakthrough's bonus teaching, BBT,
Yeah.
as the cool kids call it, I've discovered.
This is BBT2.
So catchy. Another great thing that I really want to speak on after Movie Sunday.
So that's Movie Sunday 5. For someone maybe just watching this, hasn't Movie Sunday 5.
There's a rewrite
coming using the movie Jaws as a sort of a background, not the movie itself, but the production
making of it.
And some things there that then we can learn from the life of Joseph. So you can always go and watch that on our website, Breakthrough Melbourne. Is the YouTube channel, breakthrough.org.au. You can find it there because if you that's a great backdrop to what we're talking about here.
And because one of the things I wanted to speak on is I remember studying the making of Jaws very intently for 6 months. And one thing that really stood out to me was when I discovered that Steven Spielberg was 27 when he directed it. And that hit home because I'm 27. And I remember it hit home a little bit because learning about all the troubles they had when filming, and again, go watch Movie Sunday 5 to learn about everything they had to navigate. And I found myself getting a little bit discouraged because I thought, how could he handle everything he was walking through? And then I found myself looking at my own life probably quite critically, saying, look at how you're struggling walking through these things.
Steven Spielberg was doing a motion picture and he was handling it fine.
Yeah, exactly. He was 100 days over schedule on a huge film, and yet here you are stressed because of your weekly to-do list. I mean, it was so the enemy really trying to criticize my life and make me look at my life in a very critical way. And I remember really struggling a little bit and sort of saying to God that, oh, God, here I am praying for a rewrite, yet look at how terribly I'm walking this season. And I began to pray, look at my life and look at any time when I'd think, I could have done that better. I should have done that better. No, that wasn't good. That wasn't right. I should have been more joyful. I should have been more peaceful. Oh no, Lord, I got stressed again. And it was this downward spiral of just looking at my life so critically because I realize now what I was doing was thinking, if I want God to rewrite my story, I really need to up my game so that I'm deserving a rewrite. Right. I was becoming into this thinking of, I need to fix my story up a little bit so that when I give it to God, it's not quite as messy.
Can I just think the scripture, Romans 8, we said, all things work together for good for those who love God.
Yes.
And what we say is, and are behaving in an appropriate manner and have done 3 days in a row where you're living joyfully. And it doesn't say that.
That's true.
The qualifications is not how well you're doing. It's you love God.
Yeah.
And that's important. You love Him with all your heart. And you're called according to His purpose. Yeah. The rewrite is because this is His plan.
Yeah,
and His
this
purpose.
is His story. And it is so true when you said that, because I did catch myself thinking this, like, God, if I can have an entire week where I'm the perfect Christian, then I'm going to come to you so confidently and ask for a rewrite. And I know it sounds silly, but I'm being very honest. I was literally in those moments thinking, okay, if I can just get through an entire week from Sunday to Sunday, and I feel like I never slip up, I never get discouraged, I never get overwhelmed, I never get stressed, I never get angry, I never get bitter.
You left out anxious.
I never get anxious. If I can just be perfect for 1 week, then I'm going to come next Sunday and I'm going to confidently say, God, you're rewriting the story. And what would happen is every week I would find myself on the Monday thinking, oh no, I felt anxious. Man, okay, I have to try to start again.
Restart again.
Restart, okay. And even the silliness of a week, I don't know why, is 6 days too short, 8 days is too many. It was as silly as me thinking, I think this is about the right amount of time when God would want me to be perfect. And then I can come, and it's pride. It's me saying to God, look at all the plot twists, but look at how well I've walked it for a week. Can you please rewrite it? And God really spoke to me because it was in an interview with Steven Spielberg where, I've studied Steven Spielberg's work and I love how now he's such a loved director in the industry. He is so respected. And I see him in documentaries now and he's so cool, calm, collected. He's that visionary who can just see everything on a different level. And I heard an interview when he talked about Jaws, and I was expecting him to say, yes, every plot twist that happened, everything that went wrong, I just was confident and I had ideas and I knew how to make this all work. And because everyone else talked about him saying how they don't know how he managed to actually keep that production going. And everyone else in the crew was saying how somehow he was just the glue that held it all together.
Yeah.
So I thought, of course, he was just the perfect director. And he said that often when he was on set, he said he would be very cool, calm, collected. He would be it does not matter what's going wrong. We're going to make this film. We're going to we can't film that because of bad weather. We're just going to film something else. He said it was on the go, just no, we're not going to stop. We're just going to keep filming what we can. He said we're going to say, okay, let's just make up a scene because we are not going to stop.
Yeah.
But he said what would then happen is he would go home at night and he said, crumble. And he literally said in an interview, he said, and this encouraged me again as a 27-year-old, he said he would call his mum, and then he said, and I mean call mum as in like, Mummy, I don't know what to do. And he said every night, he said he would be having nightmares, he'd be stressed, he'd be having panic attacks, he'd be calling his mum because he said, I don't know how to do this. And he said an actress came and visited the set and told him one day that, everyone in Hollywood's talking about you. And he said, oh, really? She said, yeah, they said that you're so over budget, you're never going to work again. And he's like, how cruel to say that. He said, obviously she didn't think I'd ever work again, so she didn't care about losing a relationship with me. But he said, this was really on his mind, and he said he felt as though this film was, no matter what he did, he couldn't turn this film around. He said he felt like it was an uphill battle, and he felt as though he couldn't handle it. But when he would get onto set, he said he would just do what had to be done, just keep taking steps forward. And it actually really encouraged me because I think God used that interview to sort of highlight, he said, look at you judging how Steven Spielberg handled a stressful season in his life. And he said, it's almost as though you're judging his highlights reel in terms of you're judging all the things he did right, but you're judging it versus your behind the scenes of every time you think, I could have done that better. I should have done that better. I shouldn't have been this stressed. I should have rolled my worry onto the Lord. Yeah. And God really challenged me. He said, stop comparing your story. And he said, it's not about being perfect. It's not about saying, God, if I'm just the perfect candidate, then I can get a rewrite.
Let me just go through that scripture. He'll cause all things to work together for good for those who are perfect.
For those who are perfect Christians, who never get stressed, who are always joyful, who are always meek, who are always everything.
They're the ones he calls.
Exactly. Then you qualify for a rewrite. And I know it's so silly, and the thing is to try to be totally real and authentic. If I was telling anyone else about a rewrite, I would say God will rewrite any story. Even if you've made a mistake, God can redeem it. Even if you've fallen into sin, God can redeem it. But when it came to my own life, I was putting way more filters on because I thought, yes, that's good for me to tell others, but I think I should be doing better. And God really used this concept with Steven Spielberg when he said, even when he was feeling stressed, what would happen is in the morning he would go and he would still do his best as a director, and he would still be the best director he could, and he would still take that production another day forward. And God said, you are so focused on saying, I'm never going to feel stressed, I'm never going to feel anxious, I'm never going to feel angry or bitter. And he said, actually just keep focusing on taking a step forward and keep trusting me that with every step you're going to help me, that I'm going to keep, every time I feel anxious, well, rather than beating myself up for feeling anxious, I'm going to roll my care onto the Lord, and I'm going to choose to trust God even if I'm feeling anxious. Even if I suddenly feel as though I wake up one morning, I'm just feeling a bit discouraged. Rather than beating myself up saying, oh, how dare I feel discouraged? Say, no, I'm going to choose to draw a line in the sand and just say, no, the joy of the Lord is my strength today. And God really challenged me. He said, just keep taking a step forward and don't stop and think, oh, did that disqualify me from a rewrite? Oh no, God, I think I was a little bit angry in that moment. Does that disqualify me? God's like, it's not about being perfect. And he said, just stop and say, hey, no, that's not what God made me to be. I'm going to say, no, that anger is not from God. I'm going to give that anger over to God. I'm going to walk in love. It can be, whatever it is that you might be walking through right now. It's saying you don't have to be perfect. God is not telling you, get your story perfect, be the perfect director, and then no matter what's going wrong on set, I can fix it. God is saying the entire story, every issue you're having, every time you're feeling as though, I don't know if I can handle this, God's saying, I can use that as part of the rewrite.
Yeah.
I can use the fact that you feel unqualified to walk through this season. You can say, you know what, my kids, I feel unqualified as a mum to be raising these kids. God said, hey, that can be part of the rewrite, is you saying, God, it's supernatural that I even got through this season. You know, I think when we look at Joseph's story, we see the fact that in every setback, every plot twist, God was just able to use it and move him forward. And we could see that he chose to be a good worker. That doesn't mean he didn't wake up some mornings feeling a bit overwhelmed by his situation. What we do know is he chose to still say, no, I'm actually going to embrace this season. I'm going to be the best prisoner, and I'm going to be used in this prison to glorify God.
Yeah.
We know that he stayed connected to God because when they came with the dreams, he was able to interpret them because he had a relationship with the Holy Spirit where he could interpret dreams. We know that the decisions he made, but we don't know what things he also had to push through.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Joseph was just always joyful or if he had to choose constantly to choose to be joyful.
We don't know because Joseph, we just get the picture of what's happening.
Yeah.
You have someone like David, who we do have an insight because David wrote a number of Psalms, so you both have what he was going through. Then you have the Psalms, which does give a window into his soul, does give a window into his feelings. So even though we can't know it for Joseph, we can know it for David, and we pretty much understand that's going to be typical for any man of God. David was a great man of God, called to be a king, and yet working through frustrations, working through times when he felt it was all just falling apart, it's all lost. What did he feel? And you certainly don't get the feeling of, I've got no problems here, I'm all good, I'm top of the world the whole time. The Psalms show the ups and the downs, the struggles, as well as the, hey, my soul. I love the fact that there comes a point when David says, hey, soul, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to do it. And he was, for a reason, that he was called a man after God's own heart, not because he was perfect, not because he didn't show depths of frustration and hurt and being wounded and being down, but he would say, okay, soul, let's focus on this.
And I think that is a powerful thing. It's saying that not every psalm is just I wake up in the morning overcome with the beauty of the flowers.
Yeah.
God, you're so good. I'm just so grateful. The Psalms it's an honest expression to God of what he's feeling. And I do love, God says David was a man after God's own heart. And which means God did not despise David bringing his genuine thoughts before God. Because the difference is, David didn't try to hide what he was feeling. And he didn't just try to accuse God, but he brought them to God through Psalms to say, I feel overwhelmed. I feel this is happening.
And where are you?
Where are you, God? And, I remember you said once in a message, you said, God is never scared of our questions.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between a question, which is like a throwaway question of accusing God.
And when we're angry and accusing him, as opposed to, we really just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a point where I know God's really been challenging me. He said, stop trying to feel as though you need to be perfect in order to say, God, I think I could have done this better. God, I'm so sorry for feeling anxious. I shouldn't feel anxious. I should be full of faith.
Yeah.
I should have rolled my cares upon you. And God really challenged me. He said, it's not as though of yes, just be anxious, but it's saying God actually coming and saying, God, I'm feeling anxious. Can you help me to remind myself of who you are? Rather than me thinking, if I could just never feel anything negative, then God would be so proud of me.
We use this often if people for the first time getting saved. There is a mindset that says, hey, come to Jesus, get your sins washed away. Yeah. And people are like, I need to fix myself up because they feel as if they need to come with something on the bargaining table.
Yeah.
I need to prove that I'm doing okay, that I'm actually worth you investing in.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we say the example is, come and have a bath. Well, I better go clean myself up before I have my bath. And it's like, isn't that the purpose of the bath?
Yeah.
And sometimes we say we just want to do it ourselves before we come to God, so that we feel a little bit of pride. Well, pride, we don't say like self-esteem. Take this same approach. Don't think I'll fix myself up and then come to God to get him to do the rewrite. Come right now. Don't delay it. That's the worst thing you can do.
Exactly, and that's what God is wanting. He said, just come, and that's what God really has been speaking to me in this season. He said, God already knows the ugliest parts of my thoughts. God's like, I know. It's not as though you can say, oh, I haven't been anxious. And God's like, you have been.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's better to be open.
Exactly. It's saying, God's saying, you don't need to be perfect. What it is bring it before God. Ask for his help. You could feel so inadequate to walk through a season. Your Jaws movie, you could feel very inadequate to be the one actually in the middle of it. But God's saying, even that can be part of your rewrite. I love, Pastor Peter said to me just the other day, he said, Samson, everyone often now draws him with all the big muscles. But he said, it says in the Bible that there was nothing about him which would have shown people that he had the super strength.
They thought if they wrapped his arms up in ropes, it should hold him.
Yeah.
But it didn't. They knew it was supernatural.
Yeah, so he didn't look as though he was someone who had super strength. And I think it's the same thing, that sometimes that's the best part of our stories, is actually saying, I shouldn't have been able to walk through the season, but that's God's supernatural ability. Now, I'm not saying I need to self-help myself so that I'm perfectly able to walk through any Jaws story. Saying, no, I can't walk through it. I'm human. I have emotions. But I come and bring them before God, and God supernaturally helps me. He gives me supernatural courage, supernatural boldness, supernatural forgiveness to walk in love, all these amazing things, supernatural joy. And it's saying, God's not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be honest and real to him and come to him with everything and saying, God, can you help me to walk this better?
Okay, question at that notice. This is not pre-planned or prepared. Someone's feeling overwhelmed. They feel, I don't know, and I'm not worthy of coming back. Tell them 3 things right now. You can say, do this.
Okay, that is not the spot. 3 things. First thing, if someone's feeling overwhelmed, I would say is go to God. The fact that God, do not feel like you need to fix yourself before going to God. Go to God whilst you're feeling overwhelmed. That is the best thing you can do. Rather than saying, I'm going to try to not feel overwhelmed, it's saying, enemy, if you try to make me feel overwhelmed, all I'm going to do is go to God. Yeah. That's the best way to overcome it.
When my heart feels overwhelmed, David said, lead me to the rock that is higher than I.
It's not perfect Christians don't feel overwhelmed. It's when we are overwhelmed, we just go to God, the rock who is higher than I. Number 2, I would say speak to your soul. There is such power in our words. I know for me, for my life, in this season, God has given me very specific things that I speak over my life constantly, and I speak over, I'd say, I am Brooke, and I've got 4 or 5 things that I just speak out. I'm saying, I'm this, I am this, I am this. Find those things for your life and actually speak to your soul as who God made you to be. Because, there is nothing wrong with feeling overwhelmed. There's nothing wrong with having feelings, emotions. We are human. But it is wrong to just accept it and say, well, this is just me. Yeah. No, maybe I felt overwhelmed, but I'm not an overwhelmed person. I say, maybe I'm feeling stressed, but I'm a peaceful person. Yeah. I might be feeling anxious. I'm a bold person feeling anxious. I'm not an anxious person. Yeah. And I think that's really important. Speak to your future and say, future's not going to be a repeat of the past. I might be feeling this, but this is who I really am. Yep. And the third thing I would say is do something that just says, I'm still taking a step forward in my story. It's saying, enemy, I'm calling out your tactic. I'm calling out what you've done. Yeah. You've tried to hit me with feeling, whether it's anger, whether it's stress, whether it's anything. You know what you're walking through. Yeah. Whatever it is the enemy has hit at you, I would say, go to God, speak to your future, speak to your soul, and then do something which is saying, now I'm taking a step forward in this story. Yeah. I'm going to deliberately do something right now because you've attacked my story that's going to be turning the page. The equivalent would be for Steven Spielberg. It's when he said the weather was going wrong. So he said, okay, we're just going to turn around. We're just going to create a little scene here with these characters. And he said, the amazing thing is, so many of those scenes ended up being in the movie. Because he said the things that just happened on set.
It was sort of forced on them, but hey, we made it.
It made it work. And I think for us, the equivalent in our actual lives is to say, hey, you know what, maybe this is happening, but I'm going to deliberately create something. And I think that's the best way to stop the enemy from wanting to attack you again. Is if the enemy knows every time you make me feel anxious, I go to God, I speak to my future, and I then take a step forward in my story. That's going to take all the fun out of the enemies. Yeah. Whereas the enemy loves it when he makes me feel anxious and I stop, I crumble, I get embarrassed, I pull away from God. That's why the enemy's doing it. Whereas if I flip it and say, hey, you hit me with fear, I go closer to God, the enemy's not going to want to hit me with fear. you hit me with fear, I'm going to now speak to my future and pray for my future. And I think that's a great way to make the enemy say, it's not fun attacking them, because all it is pushing them forward in their story.
And I think the third step, what you said, is the part that God then rewrites.
Yes.
It's what we do. He
Yeah.
And it hasn't come out of the perfect time. It's come out of the struggle time.
Yeah.
But you've done the other thing. You've spoken your soul. You've turned things around, and you've taken a step. And God says, "Now I'll take those steps." God causes all things. All things are those things that you take the steps in.
Yes.
God takes all those steps that you then make, works them together
exactly
for His good.
And that's the, as you said, that's the rewrite. It's when this scene wouldn't have even happened if it wasn't for the enemy's tactic, and God said, and look what I can do with it. And as a bonus step, I just want to say this is a very practical thing. This is
I said 3.
I know, 3.5. This is something Pastor Peter and Pastor Christine, my parents, spoke to me a few years ago when I was really battling fear attacks. And I remember really struggling and talking to them, saying, I don't know what to do when I get hit with this. And a very specific tactic they told me, they said, every time you get hit with fear, and it can be, again, whatever it is the enemy's attacking you with, they said, stop and pray for the church. And I remember thinking, okay, why? And I remember it was my mum, she said, because if every time you get hit with fear, you end up actually speaking to your church's future, she said, I guarantee the enemy is not going to want you to keep doing that. She said, you're not even praying for your future. She said, by you actually saying, hey, enemy, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you by praying for my church's future. And I'm not joking. I think it was within 1 week, those attacks completely left.
I thought, because all the enemy's causing you to pray, and not just for you, not this. Sometimes praying for yourself means that you're caught up in it.
Yeah, saying, I don't fear.
No, but you say, I'm praying, and I start praying for God's kingdom to be advanced and God to go. The enemy's like, I don't want that.
Yeah, and so I think as a very practical thing, I think that's another great thing. It's not just rewriting your story. When you actually take it a step further and say, I'm going to now pray for God's kingdom, that's going to hurt the enemy more. And it's that righteous, that roar of a lion that can come up that says, enemy, if you attack me, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to get you where it hurts. And that means I'm going to pray not just for my life, but for God's kingdom. And that's, I think, the best retaliation we can make, because we say, hey, enemy, you try to throw us a plot twist. Not only is God going to rewrite my story, I'm going to hurt you by praying for God's kingdom. And that's going to be the best way for us to retaliate against the enemy. And it's going to give God the best scenes to now rewrite. Because every time we're praying, God say, hey, these are more scenes that I can now use for the story. So I hope that blesses you today.
Good advice.
Stand tall.
Good instruction.
Yeah, exactly. Stand tall, stand firm, pray out. And I'm so excited to hear the rewrites that happen in your life.
Amen.